In this video, we're going to do a complete overhaul of the 2009 Ducati 1198S project that's been in my garage for many months. In fact, it's been sitting on these stands for over 3 months, and usually I don't leave a project in this state for that long. And to be completely honest, I've just been dreading documenting this entire process in the normal detail I do, just because I just don't have the time to do that right now. So, unfortunately, for a lot of you viewers out there that have become accustomed to those detailed step-by-step videos that I typically do, it's not going to be this one. We're just going to crank this one out with more abbreviated shots of all of the processes. However, the upside of this is that the Multistrada 1200 that I did a complete series on is basically the exact same engine and general layout as this bike. So if you need to see step-by-step examples, check out that series in the link above. So with that said, let's get started. A lot of oil leaking from the valve cover gasket. I've got everything pretty much stripped down. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the timing belts, but I can't do that until I've set the engine to top dead center. So the first way you know you're at top dead center is when the crankshaft pulley, there's a little marker here, a little indentation in the pulley, is lined up with this notch in the casing right there. And you just turn the engine. So I've already pulled the spark plugs off, so it's really easy to turn the engine. I just put it in first gear, turn it by the rear wheel, and it'll move the engine, and we'll see that come around and line up. I've also got a 1/4 inch extension sitting on top of the piston on the forward cylinder, and we'll know we're at top dead center because this will be at the top of its stroke. All right, that's 6th gear. Coming up. So there we are, top dead center. Before you pull the belts off, you always want to mark somewhere on the belt that relates to the cog that it sits on, so you can transfer those marks over to your new belts so you know exactly where to put the new belts on the gears themselves. So to do that, just clean off some areas with some brake parts cleaner, like that. Remember to do the camshaft gears and the crankshaft. I'm going to do this to both the horizontal and vertical belts. Grab a paint pen like this and find an easily identifiable spot to mark it. Now you can take the slack off the tensioner and slide the belt off. Marking the crank position on the vertical belt is a little more difficult. You do have to get the horizontal belt out of the way before you can really get a good mark on that. See how these pulleys are under tension. When you pull the belt off, you will need to reset these before you can refit the belt. Aside from removing the valve covers, I have stripped this bike down to its final disassembly point. And what that means is it's time to degrease and clean this thing up before we even start doing valve adjustments or anything else. If we take a look around this bike, you'll see how filthy it really is. Some of it's just accumulation of dust and dirt that's picked up from the road and from storage. And some of it is kind of grease and oil that has leaked from who knows where. Some of it's from the valve cover gaskets and just general seepage, which is expected from any gas-powered vehicle. You can see the swing arm. It's just all filthy. There's really no good way to clean a motorcycle unless you strip it down to this level. So I'm definitely going to take advantage of that. Certainly not as bad as some bikes I've seen, but this bike, it's never really been given a lot of love as far as detail goes. I'll even hit this front area, clean the places you can't even see, and that's because I know it's there. See, that front valve cover is very, very oily. Looks terrible. I hit the forks up as well, so these fork seals have been replaced, but they were never cleaned after they were replaced, which is kind of sloppy, but it's not going to matter because they're going to be clean after I'm done with it. I will also go through and clean up all the other components I've pulled off, but I won't get a video of that. So some things I've noted as I've taken this bike apart is that, one, the spark plugs were covered in oil, which tells me that the valve cover gaskets were definitely leaking down into the spark plug tube. And then the coolant. So I'm not sure what color of coolant Ducati originally would have had in this bike. It might have been one of those dark green colored coolants, but I can tell you the coolant that came out was neither dark green or pink or anything like that. It's this nasty pond water looking stuff that I can only imagine is a combination of dilution from water and whatever coolant might have originally been in there. I have flushed both cylinders with distilled water to get all of the remaining gunk out of there, and I have pulled off the thermostat. I'm going to clean that individually as well, because this is what you just don't know when you're buying a used bike. like the condition of it and how long has it had this stuff in there. Who knows, but all we can do from this point is put the right stuff back in it and give it a good cleaning while we're in there. Something I also noticed was the air box over here. Has a lot of dust on the outside, not a big deal, but what is a big deal is all the dust that's on the inside. This air box houses the fuel injectors and the throttle body. You can see, if you look in there, the fuel injector lives there, and there's also a lot of pollen and dust inside of there. Really, that should not be there. And the reason it's dusty in there is because air was getting past the air filter, because the air intake tubes seal up against the side of here, and one of the tubes wasn't sealing. The air filter design and air box design and the air inlet tube design for this 1198 is more complex than it really needs to be because it has two sealing mechanisms. The first one is on the air filter itself. It has those rubber end caps that fit right snugly up against the air box tubes. But then there's a secondary seal that seals the tube to the air box itself. And this tube just had this gasket haphazardly laying on it and not completely sealing the perimeter. You can see this is supposed to fit into the channels of the air tube, but if it's not seated properly, it allows air past that, and that's how you get dirt in the air box. So upon reassembly, I'll be sure to use some Hylamar to seat this properly so it doesn't move and so that it creates a good seal from there on out. These are the kind of little issues you'll never know that a pre-owned bike has until you tear it down and check out any previous mechanic's work. As you can see here, previous mechanic was a bit sloppy, and that over time could spell destruction for this high-powered engine.